Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is me, Sham Frostcolt the 12th. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to give you my review of the Irda. That's right, that's how I say it. By Linda P. Baker. I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the link in the description below. You can also hear pictures falling behind me. You can also pick up DragonLance game materials using my affiliate links. Those are also in the description below. Now, this is just my perspective. If you differ, if you think things are completely, like, even if it's my pronunciation, but if you just think my take on the story is just out of whack, that's okay. We can share opposing views. That's healthy. That's life. So you can, if you're joining live, put it in the live YouTube chat. And if you're watching this after the fact, put it in the comments. As long as you're cordial, we'll have a cordial back and forth. It is weird. Today, just today, I had two kind of snotty back and forths in what has been almost like a perfect year of not having anyone be an ass. So what do you know? When they come in pairs. So now I'm going to give you my pre-written review. This is going to not only give you a brief, very brief synopsis, but it's also going to give you my perspective on, the story and stuff. Very original review. So it's probably not original at all. But it's not very long. To be honest, this book did a lot of like jumping around in time, specifically in the last half of the novel. And so, and there wasn't a lot happening. There was just a lot of sort of discussion taking up a lot of pages. And so this is probably going to be one of the shortest reviews I actually give you just because of the novel itself. But it is a good one. So let's get into it. The novel starts with the heresy of Aigrain. It is ogre law that any disobedience be punished by death. But when excavating a mine, Aigrain's daughter, Everlyn, wanted a bloodstone, a slave named Aigrain took it and caused a cave-in. Aigrain ordered everyone out, but some of the slaves stayed to help Everlyn, saving her life. As Aigrain was debating having them murdered, the slaves, he listened to Adam's reasoning and chose to give his slave a choice. Now, they were still slaves, but they had more freedoms, and it tripled his production in the mines. This caused Lord Terragrim Semi, the oldest of the Ogres' ruling council, to send others to investigate why he is so successful. Now, this novel is all about politics, differing factions and individuals working together and actively working against each other at the same time. It's fascinating, as I hadn't thought it would be this in-depth. There's a female named Krynn who was disrupted in her youth, and her family estate was given away. So she began maneuvering for power ever since. She learned magic when she wasn't supposed to and has gotten close to two brothers. One who is a new cleric of Hidekel, and the other who is able to be leveraged against him. The brothers, Liralt and Gerbian, are even acting against each other. Now, Krynn approaches Liralt about gaining power, and they work together to steal the Song of History, which is ostensibly a glowing ball like on the cover of the book, from the Keeper, who is ancient and ready to pass on the title. Krynn meets with the Keeper and casts a spell that causes her to be paralyzed, with the end result being death. But she also casts a spell to cover her presence, so no one would suspect her, but rather Gerbian, the other brother. The Lord Terragrim asks Liralt to go north to Governor Aigrain's estate to investigate his methods and report back to him only. He wants to claim the estate for himself. Aigrain knows of his machinations, and when Liralt and Gerbian, Krynn and her cousins all together head up to the estate, they're attacked by a group of Disir. They fight them off, and this is really kind of interesting because there's two fights in this that really have no purpose other than to say, hey, remember, you're in Dungeons and Dragons world. Like, that's the only reason. So the Disir, there's no real reason to have that battle. You could completely remove it and it wouldn't add or take away anything. It was just a non-event. And there's a later one when they're actually sailing to Anatha, the island that they end up on as the Irda. And there's this like triple-headed sea creature that's trying to feed her children and attacks the boats. literally nothing comes out of it. Like you think maybe there would be like some sort of like revolt against Aigrain for forcing them to go on this journey and so many people die. No, nothing happens. So there's literally no reason for it to even be in the book, especially when you're already jumping forward so much time and skipping over so many important aspects of the actual characters you're talking about by the author. And so, I don't know, it's very, very strange. But anyway, so they fight them off and arrive to learn of Igrain's new method of choice, which is, again, nothing short of heresy. They're all asked to employ the same tactics, which they are loath to even mention. Kalain is overcome with Aigrain and seems to agree to work with him. They head back home and take a different route, only to be attacked by escaped human slaves. One of the ogres dies, and the others take care on the rest of the way home. This first third was pretty great. I really enjoy a story from an evil perspective that ends up being almost good. It's not quite good. And I can't wait to see how the political factions evolve. And I just want to sort of double down on this little aspect of it, because the characters of this novel could be great, but the author throws so many of them at you that it feels like none of them get the time they actually deserve. Which is unfortunate, because this has the makings, it's only 300 pages. This has the makings of being a really great trilogy or a really great TV series or even a really great trilogy of films. I mean, that's how in-depth the premise and the setup is. It's just never paid off because it's a standalone single splat book rather than like a full-blown series of its own, which genuinely, the author could actually do it as well because they're very talented. They just don't get the opportunity in this. So talk about a crazy chain of events. Aigrain is brought up on charges and many supporters join him. After being charged with heresy, he escapes north with many other supporters and was chased by the guards. They fought their way to Aigrain's estate and collected more supporters. The slaves were released from service and stayed to fight the guards, ensuring that the ogres escape. And I want to sort of double down to help add a little bit of context to this. They're all referred to as ogres. They're not referred to as Irda in this. There's a distinction between when Aigrain and his followers become Irda, and that's when they reach Anatha, the island, where they actually get their shape-changing abilities and when they actually become Irda. Up until that point, they're still ogres, but they're beautiful. You know, their skin ranges in tones just like sea elves, actually. And they're very tall and lithe, you know, sort of giant-looking humans. They are very humanoid, not monstrous at this point. And so you can imagine this entire culture of these beautiful, massively powerful, wholly evil beings enslaving all of humanity in order to build their empire, mine their mines for materials to build the empire, but also gems and stuff like that. And do all of their work from just house slavery to field slavery to mine slavery. I mean, it's if you are easily triggered by the concept of slavery, first of all, what are you doing in this world? Because it's actively happening right now all around the world. Let's not be ignorant. Maybe stay away from this book and then also the news and, you know, life in general. But it does seem to be a touchy point nowadays. When books like this examine it, it's not from an exploitation side. It's to frame that this is an evil empire. So it's not celebrating slavery at all. It's very much denigrating it. Interestingly, by the people, the very species, ogres, the first species on Krynn, the first like sort of mortal species that weren't dragons on Krynn, that were the favorite of the gods. They were the very first. So, of course, they were created by Takhisis, but they were, in fact, the first and the most beautiful. Anyway, so this is compounded by the fact that Everlyn is in love with Adamon, the human, which is a huge problem. Gerbian loves Everlyn, and Cade loves Gerbian. So there's this weird love triangle happening. Again, we're not given enough time to really explore the emotional resonance of this love triangle. It's just sort of flippantly tossed aside. But even it even sort of goes beyond the love triangle of those three, because Kalain is also in there. She sees Jerbian as like the most beautiful ogre of all of them, and she's almost, she's sort of like visibly attracted to him, to his countenance, but not to who he is. And he used to be into her until he met Everlyn. And so that's an ongoing discussion throughout the course of this novel, which again, sadly, is not given the time it needs to really develop into an interesting story point. So they fight through many attacks and ambushes, ultimately getting to a human settlement who attacks them at night. But Everlyn calms the entire attacking force of humans by promising that they'll leave the next day, even though some ogres were killed, and it was the humans that started the battle. Justifiably, because we're shown some really horrific scenes of this sort of innkeeper who only has like 2 fingers on one of his hands because his former ogre slave master bit them off and ate them in front of him. Talk about a horrific thing to live through. So I completely understand the hatred and justified bigotry of the humans against the ogres for the ogres' behavior. It's weird because we're supposed to be championing the ogres in this story. It is the Aigrain's followers, and so it's like the better version of ogres, but they're still, at this point, evil creatures. And like, it's a very interesting and challenging concept to sort of wrap your head around, unless you're like me, who loves horror films, and you're always cheering for people like Freddy Krueger. So those kids deserve it. Let's be honest. They don't. All right. So, it really puts into perspective how horrid the ogres are to their slaves and how odd these ogres are for rejecting their ways. The fact that we're rooting for the bad guys is interesting here. So they continue searching for a place of their own as the inner politics come to a head. Lerault is trying to find the right time to kill Aigrain, and Cade sees Everlyn and Aedemon, then tells Jerbian, like together, Jerbian ends up confronting Everlyn and strangles her to death after learning the truth. He then kidnaps a young girl who dreamed up a monster who ended up killing her brother, which was... There's a couple scenes in this that are never explored or explained in any way at all. One of them, unless I completely missed it, and if that is the case, please let me know. But one of them was this girl. She just had this dream of this monster that just killed a whole bunch of ogres, including her brother. They woke her up, it went away, and that was it. It never explained how she was able to do that, why that happened, what would have caused it. There's also a moment later on where there's like these meteor showers coming out of the sky, and we're led to believe it was because this one character, and we'll get to it in a second, rejected Hiddekel as his god, but it never overtly clarifies anything. And while generally I don't really need novels to spoon feed me information, contextually, you should be able to figure it out for yourself. In these 2 particular cases, I was a little confused about what was going on. So I don't know if I was just reading it too quickly or if the author had to make some edits for space in the novel or what, but there's a lot of little moments like that where you're just like, wait, what? How did that, what? All right. So, Cade and Jerbian end up kidnapping Kalain and leaving, talking about retribution, leaving the entire group. The inner conflicting politics is what makes this story interesting. Without them, this is kind of a boring tale. But with them, it's wildly intriguing, which makes this whole book like this strange enigma, because the first third of it is great. The second third is really dry and weird. And the last final third is like jumping through time so much, and it skips over so many points that should be given time to shine, that you're sort of left hollow almost. It's very, very odd, but the good outweighs the bad. And that's just sort of my take 2/3 of the way through here. And then, of course, the last third, whoa, this end of the novel condensed months and a ton of information. I really think this would have benefited from a Dune-sized novel treatment, massive amount of pages, and an in-depth faction focus. Baccaril confesses to having joined Aigrain to find the person who took the Song of History from the Keeper, as it was their family, and he and Cade were reporting to their movements to the council that was actively hunting Aigrain's group. He rejects his ways and wants to end up following Aigrain, but he needs to find his sister who left with Gerbian. Cade is his sister. So we're finally getting this information about Baccaril and Cade at the very last of the novel, how they've been traitors the whole time and that they're actually related to the Keeper, and all they want to do is get the song back from them. Like, that's wildly interesting stuff that is never explored at all. It's just like this throwaway paragraph, and you're just left like wanting more information from this because it is written well, like the story in general. Sorry, I just lost my spot. Usually I make a little note here. He rejects his ways. He follows Aigrain, but he needs to find his sister who left with Gerbian. Aigrain forgives him, and he leaves only to be captured by Gerbian months later and killed. Now, he was captured by Gerbian off camera. Like, it was never shown at all. The last we saw was he was traveling through the land. And then suddenly he's in the prison with Kalain being tortured literally to death. And you're just like, wait, what? When did that happen? How the hell did he get here? You know, that's the type of stuff that, like, the major story beats that you want to be able to read about because it has huge impact. But then he's murdered at the end, and they're saying, look, I need you to tell me where Aigrain is. And if you do tell me, then I won't kill you. But he knows he's going to kill him anyway, Gerbian. And so he's like, no, I'm not going to tell you anything. And then like 2 seconds later, he tells him, and then he apologizes to Kalain for some reason, and then Gerbian kills him. Like, you've just been sat here tortured. You know he's going to murder you. Why would you tell him? It would be so much more noble, especially it would pay off your character arc for having turned against the ogres and followed Aigrain. You just had to go pick up your sister first. If you died for Aigrain, but instead you didn't, which, it just sort of argues the point, like, why the hell did you even write this character in the first place? It seems like there's no real reason for it at all. It's so strange. Anyway, I do love a good torture scene, so at least there's that. Then Loralt attempts to kill Aigrain and fails, as his heart isn't in it, and he forsakes his dark god Hidekel, only to be wounded and blinded seemingly by the gods. That's that like sort of light meteor shower thing that just happened out of nowhere. It was weird because I thought I was like, I thought it was setting up like a premonition. Like, if you do this, you're going to cause the cataclysm, or you're going to lead to these other greater massive things. But no, it just ended up being like rocks that blinded him for some reason, like magical fire or something. Odd stuff. So then Gerbian takes Kalain, Cade, and Jalindra back to Thorad, takes command after having defeated the previous commander in the field. He's finally learned how to use magic and has gone pretty crazy and even more evil. His guards finally capture the human Adam and have him drawn and quartered in front of all of the slaves. This sends all of the slaves into a full revolt and tears the city apart, ending the ogre's empire. Kalain goes to collect the Song of History, but Gerbian destroys it. He is full crazy at this point and tries to kill Kalain when she mentions that he killed Cade's brother, Baccaril. Cade then helps Kalain defeat Gerbian as she escapes and flees north to rejoin Aigrain. The Irda group flees to the coast, gets ships, and sails to an island that's calling to them. The gods clearly want them to live and evolve to goodness. They're attacked by a sea creature, but the survivors find the mystical island of Anatha and are blessed with shape-changing ability. Kalain eventually finds them. Again, how she found them, it was all off camera. There's a lot of time skipping at the end of this novel. Finds them as well as Vane's the Ionatha. She ends up writing this massive history, which kind of ends up being like a Bible to the Irda ogres. I believe it's pronounced the Ionatha, but who knows? There are a lot more that happen in this novel, but these are sort of the primary story beats. Again, I love the political aspects of the ogre culture and wish there was more time spent with them. I wish they would have delved into Jerbian's mind more as well, so we could have understood his motivations more. But he went from pining after Kalain to pining after Everlyn to murdering Everlyn to kidnapping Kalain to going back home to the Ogres and like becoming this super evil mastermind guy, all in the span of like 100 pages. It was so quick of a turnaround. I didn't understand why he did it. Like it just didn't do a good enough explanation at all. In all, this story suggests deeper telling, but is so compact as to cut off its own legs at its own knees. It truly suffers from this as a narrative. Characters aren't given enough time to breathe, and groups are not given enough time to define themselves. But I did enjoy the novel and the telling of how the Ogres became the Irda. So if you like Irda or Ogres or just the prehistory of Krynn, I highly suggest you pick up this book. Hey, Robert, thanks for tuning in. Malcolm, how you doing? Thanks for tuning into the live chat. So that is it. I mean, it's a very quick retelling of the story, but it was not a very in-depth story because a lot of it was left out. I fantasize about maybe there is like a 600, 800, 900 page version of this story that really goes into all of the different characters, gives them a chance to shine and a reason for being in the novel, talks about the Ogres' different factions and then different houses fighting against each other, because that is really at the base, like this sort of bedrock of what this story is built on top of. And there's so many people acting on behalf of their family, against other people, against their own family, for their own desired ends, that it just needs to be really developed out more to make it a masterful novel rather than just a quick, fun, throwaway read, which this really is. Now, I've seen some comments about people saying that this is one of their favorites and they've read it a number of times. I don't know if a second reading would make this better. I think it would probably make it more frustrating for me just because I want that depth of storytelling. And it hints at it. It's like, this is probably a terrible analogy, but it's like a woman with a short skirt, right? And she seductively sits down. You can't see anything, but it just suggests more, right? Or like a nightgown or something, where it suggests something more, but you don't actually ever get to see it. And when it comes to sexuality, that's awesome. When it comes to a novel, not so great. You want more, you want more sexuality too. But anyway, all right. So that's going to do it for my review, my strange review of the Irda by Linda P. Baker. What do you guys think of Jerbian's motivations? How about Leralt's turn of heart? And finally, would you ever play an Irda before the Chaos War? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. This all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel. And also, I wanted to talk to you just for a quick second and let you all know about my new project. And it's not really new. I've been doing it for a number of months now, but I've been developing a system-agnostic dark fantasy campaign setting called DragonLance. And you can learn more about it on my Evil Live Play YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. But it's something that I've been really enjoying getting into and stuff. So, if that's interesting to you, go check it out. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance setting. I hope you all join me in that celebration. Thank you so much for joining this Dragonlance review episode. So, till next time, my name is Adam. Slàinte mhath.